All right, let's dive in. Today, we are tackling one of the most common things you'll ever need to build for a modern web app: secure user login. More specifically, we're going to break down the official step-by-step way to add a Microsoft login to your React application. Let's get to it. So you're building a cool new React app, right? And you've hit that classic roadblock. How do you let people sign in with their Microsoft work or school account? You need it to be secure, you need it to be efficient, and honestly, for any kind of enterprise app, it's a total deal breaker if you don't have it. While the answer, and what this whole explainer is about, is Microsoft's very own authentication library, also known as MSAL. We are going to walk through the exact steps you need, from setting things up in the cloud to writing the code to get this up and running the right way. No shortcuts, no fluff, just the official recommended path.
Okay, first things first. Before we write a single line of code, let's make sure we understand the tool we're using and, its place in the whole security puzzle.
So, MSAL for JavaScript is Microsoft's official battle-tested library designed for this exact job. It handles all the really complex security stuff for you, making sure your app talks safely to Microsoft's identity platform. You probably know that platform as Azure Active Directory, but these days it's called Microsoft Entra ID. Using MSAL is, without a doubt, the safest way to do this. Now, this right here is the most important security concept to grasp. Your app never ever sees or touches a user's password. It's beautiful. All the authentication happens directly on Microsoft's turf. Think of your app as a bouncer at a club. It doesn't check the ID itself. It just redirects the person to an official agent, that's Microsoft, who verifies them, and then the agent just tells your app, yep, they're good. This hugely lowers your security risk.
All right, enough theory, let's get our hands dirty. Our first stop is the Microsoft Entra ID portal. Again, that's the new name for what used to be Azure Active Directory. We've got to go tell Microsoft that our React app exists.
Now that portal can look a little intense at first glance, but really what you need to do boils down to these 4 simple steps. You register your app, you tell Azure where to send the user back after they log in, which for development is just your good old localhost 3000. You grab a couple of important ID numbers, and you set some basic permissions. That's really it.
So, speaking of those IDs you need to capture, these are the 2 big ones. Let's make this super clear. The client ID is like a license plate for your specific React app. It's unique to your application. The tenant ID, on the other hand, identifies your entire organization's directory in Azure. So, one ID for the app, one ID for the whole company. This is a really important distinction. Okay, our work in the cloud is done for now. It's time to head back to our local code editor and wire up our React app so it can talk to that app registration we just created. And the coding part is just as structured, which is nice. We'll kick things off by installing the 2 MSAL packages we need. Then, we create a really simple configuration file. After that, we wrap our entire React application inside something called the MSAL provider. And finally, we add the fun parts, the login and logout buttons for the user to click. That auth-config.js file we just mentioned, it's the critical bridge between your code and the cloud. This is exactly where you're going to paste that client ID and tenant ID you copied from Azure a minute ago. You can think of it as the contact card for your app. It tells MSAL exactly which Azure application it should be talking to. So we've covered the what and the how, but let's take a second to talk about the why. Why is this process so secure? Let's peel back the curtain a little bit on what's actually happening when a user clicks that login button. All this magic has a pretty technical name: the authorization code flow with PKCE. I know, it's a mouthful, but it's the industry gold standard for security in web apps for a really good reason. And that little with PKCE part at the end, that's an extra layer of security that basically ensures that the login process can't be hijacked. The best part is, MSAL handles this whole complicated dance for you, so you get all that security right out of the box. So here's how that handshake works. First, your app kicks things off and sends the user over to Microsoft's login page. Then, the user signs in directly with Microsoft, which handles all the serious stuff like multi-factor authentication. Third, Microsoft sends the user back to your app with a special, temporary, one-time use code. And finally, this all happens behind the scenes, MSAL takes that temporary code and securely trades it for the real login tokens.
So after that exchange, your app gets a set of digital keys. The ID token is basically the user's digital driver's license. It proves who they are, their name, email, and so on. The access token is like a temporary keycard for a specific building. It grants your app permission to access protected APIs, like Microsoft Graph. And the refresh token? That's what MSL uses to quietly get a brand new access token when the old one expires, all without forcing the user to sign in again. Pretty clever, right?
So let's bring it all home. We've got our app set up in Azure, our React code is connected, and we understand the secure flow that's happening under the hood. Now let's look at the payoff and some final, really important things to keep in mind.
This is why we did all that work. Once a user is logged in, MSAL gives you easy access to their profile information. But more importantly, you can now use MSAL to get one of those access tokens we talked about and start making secure, authenticated calls to APIs like Microsoft Graph or even your own custom backend APIs.
Okay, before you deploy this to production, here is a quick but super critical checklist. This isn't just about making it work, it's about making it tough and secure. You absolutely must use HTTPS, you need to set up a real logout URL, and you should definitely look into Azure security features like conditional access. And in your code, always ask for the minimum API permissions you need, and stick with session storage for your token cache. It's the recommended way for these kinds of apps.
And there you have it. By following these official steps, you've implemented the gold standard for Microsoft authentication in a React app. You've now unlocked secure access to user data and a whole universe of APIs. So the only question left is, what amazing, secure feature are you going to build first?